Hello, extremely intelligent lambs. Welcome back to the Movie Night Reviewer. I will be your host today, Peter Wary. I hope you had a Merry Christmas. Today's topic will be on the first key to making great films, nailing the intro. Please like, share, and subscribe, and turn on notifications so I can make more videos like this. Let's get started. Who in their right mind would want to watch a movie that begins in such a boring way that it doesn't hook you in at all? Most people, when they're watching a movie like that, turn it off very quick because the intro is what draws people in and it shows people what this movie is about. If you do not set up your story properly, people are going to want to leave. Today I'll be going over some keys on how to make good intros, and in later videos I will go over how some movies work with the intros and how other movies don't work with it, making good intros. So let's jump into that, right? So the first key to making a good intro is that you should set up your characters in the beginning. You don't have to set up all your characters, but especially the main characters. You need to set them up in the intro. You can have characters join them later on. You need to make your characters likable. Especially, let's go off this, right? Let's set up a movie, right? Let's say there's one main character, right? In the beginning of your movie, you need to set up your protagonist. You need to set up their personality. You need to set up how they look, who do they hang out with, who are their friends, what are their likes and dislikes, what are their struggles, what are they good at, all this, right? You have to set that all up in the beginning if you want people to want to watch more of this character. And you have to make them likable, but not just likable. If you make someone just likable, but you can't relate to them, that's a problem. So make them likable, but also make them relatable. Then you can set up characters around them, right? Use them as the focal point to setting up new characters, right? This character meets people, and that's how they're getting introduced, right? Do not set up character right here, character right there, and they have no connection, because the problem with that, people are not going to want to watch this movie because there's so many characters they have to follow. If you follow one character and they meet other characters and those characters go off and do their own thing, then you're going to want to follow those characters too, because you have a focal point to go back to. The main character that is what ties them all together. The second key to making great intros is set up the world around these characters, right? If you don't introduce the world around them properly, and let's just say, what if, in this scenario of this movie we're creating, right? We start out in New York City, right? The characters is joining himself in New York City, and then suddenly, a little bit into the movie, just cuts away to this small town that he now lives in, right? And the whole point of him being in New York City had nothing to do with the plot at all. It was just, they thought it would be a good idea to start there, and then just cut away to a new spot, right? It doesn't tie in, he doesn't, have memories of, oh, I wish I was let back in New York City, or I'm so glad I'm out in New York City now. It's just, he was in New York City, and now he's not. You don't want to do that. You don't want to set up a world in the opening, and then cut away to a new world. You want to stay in the world that you create in the beginning. The intro is where you set up the world, you set up how the world works, and to go off of that, that's where you set up, on X key, magic or mystical elements of the plot. You want to set up how the world around this works, right? In a superhero movie, let's just say it's an X-Men movie, right? You want to set up that these mutants exist, right? Some people are just born with these abilities, right? You're probably going to have your main character as a mutant, right? You set up that mutants are a thing in this world. If you don't set up in the beginning, if you just have this character just doing all this stuff and then just suddenly, imagine if, so let's just say our character, right? He's exploring the world, he's doing all these things, right? And he comes upon this evil monster, right? And then suddenly has the ability to shoot lasers from his eyes.
Well, that's just lazy writing.
You need to make sure that you set up all magic elements in the opening and set up how the rules work for this magic, right? the elements of, let's just say, go on to the mutant thing, right? That mutants exist. It's a built-in part of these people that they have these abilities. Sometimes they struggle with dealing with these abilities, but they have these abilities, right? Let's just say your main character, right? Let's just say he has the ability to fly, and he's super strong, right?
Oh, they fly now! They fly now? They fly now!
Right? And those are his abilities. You want to set that up in the intro. Just like with the characters, you need to set up the abilities that these people have and the elements around them, right? In a fantasy world, right? If you show unicorns in the beginning of the movie, right? And you show a couple other magical animals, then people are more willing to understand why later on in the movie you see another magical animal, right? But if you, at the beginning of the movie, show, let's just say, again, New York City, right? They're just in New York City, everything's normal New York City, and then halfway through the movie, suddenly there are unicorns, magical creatures. It will make no sense, because you need to set up in the beginning how the magical elements works, and stuff like that. If you want to have those elements in your movie, you need to set them up in the beginning. So again, the world building is a very important part of your intro. The next key is that you have to set up your plot. Your plot is a very important part to set up in your intro. Imagine if you were watching a movie, right, and there's tons of random stuff are happening, right? This bank robbery happens. This guy gets a loan from the bank, right? Maybe that's okay. So that's like, so this person, our main character, is getting a loan from the bank, and the bank gets robbed. Okay, so how does that tie into the plot? Is there something that ties into like trauma? Like, there must be something, right? No. The next scene, he goes and he gets a hamburger and he eats the hamburger. Then it sets up this, and then it's like all this different stuff happening, and none of them ties into the plot. And then it's halfway through the movie, right? But let's just say we're an hour into the movie when suddenly an explosion happens, and this guy has to become a superhero. He has to do this. He has to do that. Suddenly, we are just forced into a plot, right? You just lost most of your audience who turned off this movie because they don't want to keep watching this guy doing his normal daily thing of eating food and stuff like that. You don't have to set up all your elements, but you should set up a basic story in the beginning of your movie. It is said that you need to, by the 12-minute mark, have your plot set up. And if you can't do that, then you're going to lose most of your audience. The next key, after you set up your plot that ties into the plot, is introducing your opposing force. It can be a villain, it can be this person has gone bankrupt. It can be anything that would drive the rest of the story along. But you need to introduce in the beginning what this is, right? If halfway through the film, finally stuff started going wrong, like we were talking about before with the movie where this guy was just doing his normal life, besides of course a bank robbery happens and stuff like that, but there's nothing that ties into the plot, and then halfway through the movie, suddenly the antagonist comes in. The explosion happens, right? That suddenly kicks off the movie, right? We're an hour into the movie. In the intro, you need to introduce your opposing force. You can't be introducing it halfway through the movie, because then for the first part of the movie, there's nothing going on. Opposing force is what's going to cause, right? It can be the villain, right? It can be just a simple, again, like bankruptcy, or like something that causes the person to go on their path. But it has to have something, some villain of sorts, to cause stuff to happen. It can be even a struggle inside the person, right? Like with The Grinch Who Stole Christmas. Opposing force in that is kind of the main character. He hates Christmas. He's what caused the story to go on. And all these tie together into one main thing that I've been talking about through this whole thing. Do not board your audience. You have to make sure to keep your audience attention through this. Again, with the whole, it's said that you need to set all this up in the first 12 to 20 minutes, right? You don't want to bore your audience. You want your audience to stay invested in the story. Again, if your audience does not like the movie at first, in the first little bit of the movie, they're going to probably turn it off, right? I know I've done that plenty of times with movies where I started watching it and there were some movies I got all the way through, but there was plenty of movies that I stopped watching because it just got old. It just felt like it was dragging on and I didn't feel like it was going anywhere. There was some movies I actually managed to get all the way through, but it was like, you have to have a good opening. Sometimes the opening is one of those things where it's not the best, but when you get further into the movie, you're like, oh my goodness, that was awesome. And then you rewatch the opening, you're like, oh, this has great stuff to it afterwards. Well, that can sometimes work. You don't want to do that all the time. Because the problem with doing that all the time, it causes people to get bored and turn off the film. While people may like it a second time, the point of an intro is to set up for people who are just watching it for the first time. You can do all you want to add extra little keys in there that causes people who are watching the second time to like it even more. But you have to draw your audience in. You have to hook them. If you throw a line into the water to go fishing and you don't put any bait on it, what's going to keep the fish from just going the other direction? You want your audience, the fish, to think that it's a good idea to jump on the hook. That's what you need to do. You need to make it the bait of your movie. The story, the characters, the world building, the magic elements, the opposing force, all that, you need to make them like it. The story needs to draw them in. If it doesn't draw them in, then there's no point of them watching this movie. They're not going to want to watch it, right? You might have some great elements in later on. And if you can manage to get some people to watch through them, yeah, they might like the movie. But your intro is the first key to making people like your movie. Overall, for this video, we have talked about the importance of setting up a good intro and how that is the key to getting people to want to watch your movie. Because if people do not want to watch all the way through, they won't. If they can't stand the beginning, there's a high chance that they will just walk out of the theater, turn off the TV, whatever, right? They're going to close the book. They're not going to want to continue. You must set up a good intro so that people will want to watch the continuation of that story. Again, I will be going into more depth on each of these topics as I make more videos talking about the intros of movies and TV shows. I will make a video on the difference between a movie intro and a TV intro. So please subscribe and turn on notifications so you can see those videos when they come out. They're going to be awesome. So overall, thank you for clicking on this video. Thank you for supporting this channel. This has been the Movie Night Reviewer, Peter Wary, signing off. Hey guys, just want to quickly mention at the end about how I will be continue making videos talking about more personal opinions I have on movies. My plan is to make 2 videos per week. One is an educational video on the keys to making great movies, and the other one is on more personal opinions, right? Some weeks I might make a reaction video to a movie. Sometimes I'll just be reviewing a movie. This week I'll be putting out the part 1 to my 20 favorite superhero movies. So look out for that. Thank you again for watching. I hope this channel will grow so it can reach more audiences and more people will love to watch this content. You guys are the best. I really appreciate you guys. Keep the good work up.